seen something like me.
Hi and welcome to Walking with Walfinch. Another episode here today. We've got the very, very great Scott Greenberg, who's an international best-selling author of The Wealthy Franchisee and has just launched his new book, Stop the Shift Show. But welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on pronouncing that book title correctly this time. You never know.
It's 7 a.m., so I've got this. Okay. Coffee in hand.
Yeah, we'll get a few drinks in you, and then see if you can still pronounce it correctly.
Absolutely. So, Scott, I wonder, if you could just give us a synopsis of your background and history.
Yeah, so I was doing professional motivational business speaking for 13, 14 years before I got into franchising. I was talking about resilience, leadership, and peak performance, but it always bothered me that so many people in my audiences had so much more experience actually in leadership than I had, and I thought I wanted to do something about that and obviously have another stream of income. And that's when I saw an airline magazine ad for edible arrangements. And I live in Los Angeles, I thought, we don't really have anything like that there, it would be great. And so before I knew it, I was jumping into the world of franchising without leaving speaking, but I wanted to use this business as a place to learn as much to earn, get more credibility, and figure out what does it really take to succeed in business. Turned out it was something very different than what I was saying on stage. So I had to unlearn a lot of things because now I was in the real world.
That's very interesting.
Not in the theoretical one. And so, I did that for more than 10 years. And I started getting invitations to speak to other franchise systems. And I got to meet their best franchisees and see what they all have in common. And so decided to write a book, The Wealthy Franchisee, which is about these great franchisees in all these different industries and what they have in common and what makes them different from everyone else. So all the work that I do today is about helping everybody embrace those same behaviors and characteristics so they can become wealthy franchisees and succeed.
That's quite amazing. I mean, so just going back to when you made that leap from speaking into franchising, what did you find that the differences were between the things that you had been touting on stage and the things that you were having to do on a day-to-day?
People who are showing up in professional attire in a ballroom with name tags hanging down are going to embrace concepts such as there's no I in team, right? But in the real world, where people haven't read the same leadership management books, they don't know how they're supposed to be responding to my brilliant motivational tactics. Their eyes glazed over. And so I realized that the real world is so much different than the theoretical world. You can't take customer service, you can't take employee engagement and fit it into a 4-quadrant model. Right? There aren't like 6 bullet points that these are the ways to make it happen. Like, you have to think on your feet and be different and understand the human side of what you're doing. So it was just so much harder, so much more challenging, but that much more satisfying when you could start to figure it out. And so
I'm so glad that you've said that, because I'm sure so many people have been in that situation where they either go from employment as a manager or something into self-employment and then think, well, gosh, look, now I've got all of these new issues, and that was just never the case before, and so on. And I think it just really humanizes the whole problem.
Well, also in the franchise world, you have people who have no experience at all as a manager, as a leader, going from nothing to ownership and being a boss. Or you have people with incredible experience in a white-collar environment. Managing people who are very educated, who are highly skilled, who are self-motivated. So they come in having no experience managing this population, and they really struggle.
Totally. So what is it? I mean, what characteristics are they that you need to be a successful entrepreneur or a successful franchisee?
What I've learned is there's 3 things that impact our business, for better or for worse. First thing is our circumstances that we don't control. The economy, the competition, cost of goods sold, government policy. We don't control these things, but they impact the business. A lot of struggling franchisees love to use these things as a scapegoat. Something, it's not my fault, it's because of government or whatever. The second thing is our operations. What certainly you would be an expert in. A lot of franchise brands, they say that they have a proven model for success. And that's usually correct. The model is great. So it is your policies and your procedures and your sales and your marketing and your branding, very tangible things. And what's great about franchising is they'll spell all that out for you. They'll give you the handbook. And that's great. So the myth then is that, well, if I just stick to the system and then put in the hours, I'll be successful.
Yeah.
Strategy plus sweat
Yeah.
equals
Yeah.
high performance. But in any franchise system, and I'm sure this is the case even in yours, you find people who are sticking to the system,
Yeah.
putting in the hours, working really hard, but they get stuck at a certain level of performance, even in the same circumstances as other people. And the reason for that is this third factor, which I've learned is the real difference maker. And that is what I call the human factor.
Yeah.
What all of us bring to our own business, our own mindset, our own level of resilience,
Yeah.
our ability to keep a clear head, and then
Yeah.
it's our interpersonal skills, our ability to inspire and engage employees, to wow our clients and customers, to improve the lives of everyone who our business touches.
Yeah.
So it's all that social, emotional, psychological stuff that we often write off as soft
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah.
These things directly impact how we execute. So it's that third factor that I find is the real opportunity for most people. If we improve that and then infuse that into really good operations, then we can do really well no matter the circumstances.
Thank you for that. I mean, that is just mind-blowing, really, isn't it? That there is such a neat summary of what you need. I mean, often people ask me when they're looking to get a franchise, what do you look for in a franchisee? But I often focus on that third item there, that sort of EQ, the resilience, and being able to connect. Because certainly in the home care space, you're so driven towards the people, and that's really the kind of fundamental factor. If you can't retain them, you're out.
Right.
And it's a huge issue. But so as a if I was a franchisee, which I once was actually, and I don't have one of those things, what do I do?
You don't have...
I don't have one of those skills or qualities right now, but I find myself in a franchise system, and I maybe, I'm not as resilient, or, I do find my mindset in the wrong place in one of those sections.
Okay.
What could I do about it?
So another way of wording your question is, what should I do if I'm a human?
Yeah.
Because we're all flawed,
Yeah.
right? None of us are superheroes. I certainly want, I have some multi-unit franchisee for more than a decade, and I wouldn't say that I'm naturally resilient, that I'm naturally clear-headed, that I naturally can connect with people. But if we can at least start off with self-awareness, with the understanding that there's a lot of factors impacting my business, but nothing more than me.
Yeah.
That I either am an asset to my business or I'm a liability. So if I could have more self-awareness, then I can become, take a little bit more responsibility. I can work a little bit harder to calm myself down when things get tough.
Yeah.
Spend a little bit more time thinking about how can I build culture, as opposed to just how can I sell more.
Yeah.
That you can just act a little bit more deliberately. And so I find that you can incrementally become more effective, and as you do that, your business will grow and improve incrementally. So, but there's some people who it really is who they are.
Yeah.
I'll have them on a panel sometimes, and I'll say, hey, where do you struggle with your business? What causes you the most stress? And they almost won't answer the question because they say, well, I know when there's a problem that I need to have a good attitude. And they start talking about what they need to do instead of just sort of acknowledging, right? And so I certainly respect those people, but I have interviewed and met so many people, and I've been one of those people who it doesn't come quite as naturally, but I've worked on it.
Yeah.
And they've worked on it, and you see the results in the business.
Yeah. I mean, that's really great. So just to take a second here, we're just walking past the Phoenix Convention Center, and this is where the IFA is hosting the International Franchise Association's annual convention, where you have been speaking. Thank you very much for that. Mm-hmm. And this street looks very different to last night. So we were just right there, I don't know if you remember, with last night coming out of the socials and so on, everyone's spilling over, and it's really quite wonderful to see how things get turned over overnight, isn't it? So,
I think things are the same. You were just drunk.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is true.
No, not at all.
So Scott, getting back to the show here, what I'm really interested in is you've interviewed, I imagine, hundreds of very successful franchisees. How have they gone about the culture building piece that seems to be so important in any business?
Sure. Well, not only have I interviewed a lot of those high-end franchisees, I've also interviewed a lot who struggle.
Yeah.
And a lot in between. And so that's important so you can see the differences.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest difference is that these high-level people actually know what culture is. Most people don't. They hear that and they think, well, I'm just going to be nice to my employees.
Yeah.
And usually that means buying them stuff.
Yeah.
a gift card, pizza,
Yeah.
Stuff.
Very
Which is
transactional things, yeah.
and it's fine.
Yep.
It's nice. It's kindness. But culture isn't about exchanging of gifts or things. Culture is the social norms between any group of 2 or more people.
Yeah.
Right? So, and culture changes. I mean, you are a guest here in the United States right now. So there's things that are different. I use the word drunk.
Yeah.
Okay, I could think of another word that starts with a P that means the same thing that you might say in your country,
Yeah,
right?
that is true.
So there are cultural differences. So, do we shake hands? Do we bow,
Yeah.
right? There's all kinds of things, and usually it's a common set of beliefs and focal points
Yeah.
about what is normal, what is okay,
Yeah.
right? And then there's rituals, practices that that reinforce that. So, here in the United States, we have certain holidays, we
Yeah.
have certain foods. It sort of defines who we are.
Yeah.
In the UK, you have some different ones,
Yeah.
right? In a business, every group of 2 or more people has a culture. The best by design, most by default.
Yeah.
And so what I found is really great franchisees who care about culture from the very beginning. As soon as they hire a new employee, first of all, they're hiring them to see if they're a cultural match.
Yeah.
But then they talk about the culture. This is who we are. This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we interact.
Yeah.
And here are some of the ways in which we express that.
Yeah.
And then they continuously talk about it and put it in their head so that they know that it's really important. And so, so they'll have regular meetings where they'll talk about their values.
Yeah.
And say, who is an example of when you demonstrated that value, what are your intentions? Or I talk with other franchisees who every morning the employees go around in a circle and they talk about what they appreciate about each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Because teamwork and gratitude are among their values.
Yeah.
Like they really are deliberate about practicing. And what that means is investing time, not on the operation,
Yeah.
but on the relationships.
Oh, the relationships is so true.
But the ROI, the return on that investment, is a much tighter culture,
Yeah.
which means more retention, more loyalty,
Yeah.
and higher performance.
And that's really wonderful. I mean, the one thing that really stuck out for me there is the ritualistic behavior. So, if I think about my own businesses, the things that I've often focused on is exactly that, creating ritual. So if it's that management meeting the same day, same time every week, or the way you thank people and the conversation that you're having, but I find that repetitive behavior and doing the right thing well, consistently and on an ongoing basis, I feel like that really has helped me in a small business setting. That's really helped me create culture because it hones everyone. It's in many ways, businesses and religion are very similar. It's about creating process about how we do something.
And you think about what defines religion. It's a common set of beliefs,
Yeah.
and then it's a set of behaviors and
Yeah.
rituals that reinforce that. And in a business like yours, where most of your team members, your carers, are working remotely,
Yeah,
it's easy to get lonely. It's
Yeah.
easy to feel detachment.
Totally.
Which means you have to be that much more deliberate
Yeah.
about creating culture however you can, and
Yeah.
it can be done, and you guys do it better than anyone. And so it's about being deliberate about it because you see the value in that.
Yeah. Well, and actually, it's exactly that. It's when you understand the ROI. I think it's quite astounding. If I look at a care worker, and that could be anyone, to be honest, in any sector, but when you start thinking about the people and the actual intrinsic value of what they do, you start thinking about it in a different way. If you think, well, if I had a consultancy client and they were generating £50,000 worth of revenue for me, how would I behave with them? I have a care worker or an hourly worker that does the same thing. How do I behave with them? And it's just because of the job title have I kind of misconstrued where the revenue's coming from actually, and where the importance of your time needs to be, right?
Yeah, well, and look, not only do you need to appreciate the return on the investment, but you also have to appreciate the cost of not doing it.
Yes.
Right? How
Yeah.
much time are so many businesses spending trying to recruit
Yeah.
and solving problems
Yeah.
and filling in for a person who quit at the last minute?
Yeah.
Or they're just not doing a good job because they don't care.
Yeah,
Right? And so it'll actually say a good investment financially should make you more money.
Yeah.
A good investment of time should yield you more time.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe that culture is such an important investment, because what you'll end up with is more time.
Yeah.
Because there's fewer problems to solve.
And I want to get back to this hourly worker and retention piece because, obviously that is what your new and very wonderful book is about. But before we get onto that, just to sort of kind of tie up this piece around the franchisees. And one of the things that keeps me up at night and that I'm always thinking about is how do you drive franchisees? How do you keep motivating franchisees to keep wanting to do the next thing? Whether that is through training and sort of saying, well, look, am I going to make sure that you're positioned in the right place? Is that through better recruitment as well as a franchisor? And really thinking about that?
So this is an issue where I feel very strongly. There are a lot of franchise systems that are really eager to grow.
Yeah.
They want more dots on the map,
Yeah.
and they need the revenue.
Yeah.
So they'll sell to anyone who
Yeah.
financially is qualified,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's unethical, because there's people who are dipping
Truly.
into their life savings to open up these businesses. But the franchisor, they're just aggressive and they want to grow. They're thinking short term.
Yeah.
So not only is it dangerous for that new franchisee, but it's dangerous for themselves,
Yeah.
because if the franchisee is not suited for that business, everyone's going to get harmed there.
Yeah.
So the best franchise systems have standards beyond financial ability.
Yeah.
Right? Are they a cultural fit? Do they bring a certain amount of business acumen? Will they contribute and enhance the culture?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They're really looking for those kinds of things, that people stuff. And prospective franchisees come to me all the time wanting advice as to who should they invest in. I never tell them who, because I don't know what they want.
Yeah.
I know they're a good match for.
Yeah.
But among the things I tell them to look for is a franchise system that is a bit exclusive,
Yeah.
that isn't going to necessarily say yes to you.
Yeah.
Right? That they're going to grow slowly because they want to grow right.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
That's really wonderful and actually very reassuring, I must say, because in the last 12 months I've said more no's than yeses, and we have a sort of quite rigorous vetting process now, and I'm the last person that a potential franchisee will meet, and often I've said no because of that cultural piece, because I sort of feel like, well, do I want my mother getting care from this person? And if I don't want them there, then what the heck am I doing taking them on as a franchisee? And so often people have got the funds, and that's not an issue, and they're just not the right cultural fit, and that's really difficult, because to sort of qualify that and quantify that, it's really hard. But I sort of feel like it's that real life lived experience that you can measure. Who is the right person and who fits the brand. And I think that exclusivity piece, and I know other franchisors that feel the same way, and I think that's the word ethical that you use is so important, and those kind of two things really go together, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, look, even if you don't care about ethics, even if you just are driven by greed and wanting to make money, you probably still want to do it long term.
Yeah.
So the way you make the most money is by building the best system, not
Yeah.
by bringing on people who aren't right, who aren't going to do a good job. You're creating a monster.
Yeah.
And what happens in a lot of franchise systems is you have development people whose whole focus is on sales.
Yes.
But then you have operational people.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who have the long-term relationships
Yeah.
with them. And often these people don't talk. They're
Yeah.
siloed.
Yeah.
And so the development people, they make the sale, and then they just pass them on and they let operations deal with it. And that's unfortunate when that happens.
And truly, it really is. And I suppose kind of looking at that big piece, the retention and recruitment aspect, which internationally I think has become a talking point, and I think your book couldn't have come out at a better time. It's really, I mean, certainly in our industry, that is what the shift has gone to. So we've gone from consistently talking about recruitment, and over the last 18 months to 2 years, we're now constantly talking about retention and how to do it, and what are the right ways. Now, you spoke earlier about how that has an actual value of losing staff, not kind of being able to grow and so on. What have you seen in that space about the kind of ROI on doing it badly?
Well, if you own a franchise business, you want to be able to spend your time selling and growing and bringing out the best in people you already have, right? You don't want to be spending a lot of time, a lot of money having to recruit new people, right? So the better your retention, the less you have to deal with recruitment, right? There are two issues right? So what that means is really understanding, why do people leave and why do people stay?
Yes, yeah.
It's another thing that most people get wrong.
Yeah.
They think it's simply a matter of money.
Yeah.
Right? So during the pandemic, for a lot of industries, they fired their employees. Then a year and a half later, they wanted them back.
Yeah.
And guess what? They weren't racing to come back,
I
right?
imagine.
So what did a lot of these people do? They just, we'll offer more money per hour. We'll
Yeah.
offer signing bonuses. That's not a long-term recruitment strategy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you don't want to dip into your margins. You want to make money. But there are things that people want besides making more dollars, more pounds.
Yeah.
People have what I call soft needs. They have the hard needs,
Yeah.
what they need to survive, money. But they also have soft needs, emotional needs, things they want to feel on the job.
Yeah.
Especially the younger generations,
Yeah.
right? That are very much value life balance, that very much value mental health,
Yeah.
that very much value their time, and they don't want to have to suffer through a shift.
Yeah.
So what that means is employers who want to retain people need to invest a little bit more time. They always should have been spending time on the customer experience,
Yeah.
right? More time on the employee experience. How can we enhance not what they get, but how they feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides buying them pizza
Yeah.
and getting them a gift card,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like emotionally, what do they need, and deliver on those needs,
Yeah.
right? Like I've always said that when it comes to branding and selling and growing the business, the brands that make customers feel the best are the brands that
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
How we make a customer feel matters more than what the customer gets.
Yeah.
It is true for employees as well. It's not about paying the most money. It's about providing the best customer experience or the best employee experience. When you do that, you become an employer of choice, and it's easier to keep the people you have and to attract more people because you are attractive.
Yes.
Because the word gets out that, wow, this place feels great.
Yeah.
This place sees my humanity. This
Yeah.
place, you can always make more money, but you're never going to get your time back.
Yeah.
And younger generations really value, again, life balance, psychological safety, and just how their day is spent. So let's work to make their experience of work a little bit better.
Yeah.
And they're more
Okay.
likely to stay because we're driven more by emotion than anything else.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's literally hitting the nail on the head, because you can pay somebody as much as you want, but if they're not truly happy, they'll leave. I've often felt that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses, and so how do you do that? How do you create that? If I'm talking in very practical terms, what does one have to do to create that and become the employer of choice?
For me, it spent many catching myself making assumptions about what my employee wants and then finding out what it is they really want. So I literally had meetings, one-on-one, team meetings, and then I even did a blind survey.
Yeah.
And in that same survey, I tried to measure their job satisfaction,
Yeah.
what they enjoy about the job, which was different. I had some on a scale of 1 to 10, whatever, so I could come up with metrics.
Yeah.
But I asked them, I gave them like a list of values, and I said, which matters most to you?
Yeah.
The answer is never money. Money usually ranked 3 or 4. In my group, it was usually they want to feel appreciated for the work that they do.
Yeah.
That they want personal growth. Now, this was a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
So their value system at that time is not necessarily a reflection of all work cultures at any given time.
Yeah.
But it's to find out what is it that your employees care about. Certainly when we think of the consumer marketplace, we're constantly doing research to find out what do consumers want today.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
matter, and then we use that in our marketing.
Yeah.
We use that in delivery of our products and services. We need to continuously monitor the desires of the labor marketplace.
Yeah.
What is it that the people we want, the people we have, what do they care about the most? And then deliver that. And it might be as simple as they want praise,
Yeah.
or they want more flexibility with hours. It might be they want more money, but usually that's not the case. Usually what they desire more of is some kind of soft need as opposed to the hard needs.
Yeah.
So identify the soft needs of your team members and then do your best to meet those soft needs. It's kind of a simple concept
Yeah.
to think about it, but
ask the question and fix the problem.
But
So-
most employers are lazy
Yeah.
and just want a simple answer. And the easiest thing is just to throw money at the problem.
Yeah.
With the assumption that it's like a dog treat. That's money's the only thing
Yeah.
that drives people, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, and I think that's so right. I mean, in my years of experience within the home care sector, certainly, that's absolutely what I found. I remember back in 2012 when I started in the sector, one of the things I just did was I literally, like I was in an exam, I revised all the care workers' names, their family names, spouses, kids, and pets, cats and dogs, and some had chickens and so on. But you just learnt the people, and you then started to get to know them and got under the kind of the hood with the whole thing and started to understand, well, what drives this person? What motivates them? You know, some people, you know, were more driven by money because they had other issues, younger children, and, you know, they needed that. You know, for other people, they'd been in the sector for so long, and they just wanted recognition. They wanted someone to say, look, I don't want to become a manager. I want to remain as a care worker. I'm really good at doing this. But what I want is somebody to understand that and to high-five me properly, you know. And
yeah, well, people want to be seen.
Yeah.
And they want to, there's certain universal soft needs, such as recognition.
Yeah.
Right? Such as, you know, safety. But certainly, people want to feel like they're part of something.
Yeah.
Right? They're part of a group.
Yeah.
So by you knowing their dog's name,
yeah,
and knowing their birthday, or they've got a game coming up, it's saying you're not just employee number 16.
Yeah.
It's, I see you, you matter,
yeah,
there's a human connection here. It's more personalized.
Yeah.
Just like customers appreciate it, so do employees.
Absolutely.
So I think it's huge. And here's the thing about, you know, money, as you mentioned, that there might be someone who's really struggling financially. You can go back to the old hierarchy of needs from Abraham Maslow.
Yeah.
There's that basic need of survival.
Yeah.
So all the like the motivational soft needs stuff, they're not thinking about that when they're worried about getting
yeah,
dinner on the table
yeah,
tonight.
Yeah.
But once those basic needs are met, then they're not as driven by
yeah,
those same things. Then they're starting to think about the softer
yeah,
things, and that's when those things become more important.
And that's really wonderful. I think, you know, the sum up of that is just so neat. But one of the things that you were talking about earlier, essentially, was surveying your team. And how often should an employer do that? Is that like a annual thing, a quarterly thing, a weekly thing?
Definitely more than annual.
Yeah.
I asked that question of all these different high-level work environments that
yeah,
I interviewed with hourly employees.
Yeah.
And the answer varied.
Yeah.
I think formally that many were doing it every quarter, some every month, but there are some who on a weekly basis, they just have a tablet.
Yeah.
And when people come to work, they can just quickly click or press a button or something.
Which is nice.
So on a daily or weekly basis, they can
yeah,
just kind of take a temperature
yeah,
of how things are.
Yeah.
And if they start to see any trends or anything, well, then they know they need to take action. So they weren't doing this long formal survey. It's just, how are you feeling today about the work? Or, you know, there's a concept of the net promoter score.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you can't buy a pack of gum without
yeah,
someone saying, you know, would you recommend this
yeah,
store to, right? Well, you can have an employee net promoter score.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this job to a friend?
Yeah.
And just ask that one question, and now you have a pretty meaningful metric on employee satisfaction.
Yes, which I think is so true. And actually one of the things that I've often been interested in tracking is that question, because I think if people say yes to that question, you're doing something right, and if they say no, then, you know, you need to rapidly fix something. You know?
Right, and I guess you have to, you know, in that particular question, I think it's a scale of
yeah,
like, you know, 1 to 10. So again, so you have a metric that can be measured, but it's a very simple thing. It's not everything, but it's one thing. If you want to do it more often, it is an easy way to track how your employees are doing.
Great. And are there any sort of very specific tools, tips, tricks that you can offer to employers on A, how to do this well, B, how to track it? You know, what are we tracking? So I suppose I'm looking at that from both aspects and looking across the portfolio of books that you've now got. So,
sure.
You know, as a business owner and a franchisee, what am I tracking, both for my own success and growth in terms of, you know, the revenue and finances and so on, and for employee metrics, because presumably that is all part of it. So if I'm looking at a dial of 5 things, what 5 things do I need to measure to understand how fast I need to move?
Are you talking about overall the business, or are you talking
thing.
about the human side?
Yeah, I suppose both, really.
Okay.
You know, and just, I suppose if there's 2 or 3 things on each aspect, that would be really helpful.
Well, first of all, I think it's important that every franchisee really looks at their numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, culture itself isn't enough. There needs to be sales.
Yeah.
There needs to be growth.
Yeah.
Certainly in a business like yours, there needs to be retention.
Yeah.
Customer satisfaction is really important. And so what's nice is in a franchise system is you can go to a franchisor and say, hey, what are the meaningful metrics?
Yeah.
Certainly in your system, I'm
Yeah.
sure that you can provide what
Yeah.
those things are for measuring the business itself. For measuring some of the softer things, such as employee satisfaction, maybe customer satisfaction, you know, franchisees need to be more deliberate. And
Yeah.
so if I were to come up with a list of survey questions so I can measure these things, I'd want to know, I'd want feedback on their level of satisfaction, how connected they feel to team members, and how they feel about management.
Yeah.
That takes courage to ask that question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about me? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good am I as a boss for you?
Yeah.
And there should be one way to it's measured, so it's either yes or no, or it's some kind of scale, 1 through 10. And then questions where they can type answers so you can get more feedback.
Yeah.
Whether you say comments or how would you describe my management style? How can I improve as a manager? And have the courage to ask those kinds of questions.
I think that's really quite wonderful, actually, and I'll be reading your book on the plane back.
And I have a whole chapter on this, a whole chapter on measurement and metrics for employee performance.
So useful.
Right, but here's a really important thing. If you're going to ask them these questions, what they believe can be done to make things better, you have to close that feedback loop. They need to see change or report back to them saying, hey, based on the survey, based on the input you gave, here's what we're going to continue to do, here's what we're going to do better, or here's what we're going to do differently, so that they feel empowered, so they know that they're heard. Because part of what you want is to make sure that they're going to answer these questions in the future and not feel like, well, they don't really care. They're asking, but they don't really care about my opinion. It's almost like their level of engagement in these surveys itself is a measurement of employee engagement.
Just phenomenal. And I think that's absolutely right, the closing of the loop. And I think a lot of franchisors do that with franchisees, but I wonder how many franchisees do that with their own employees.
Most franchisees are too busy being busy to think about that kind of stuff. They want to deliver the products and services, provide the hours of care. They're just focusing on getting that stuff done because it's hard work, right? But if you could somehow carve out the time, the work will become a little less hard.
No, it's really great. And we're sort of looking at how we can help franchisees with that in terms of automation and getting the right questions, making it not too onerous.
Right.
That's sort of loud old thing, isn't it? Right. So Scott, what prompted you to write this book? What inspired you? What did you see that made you think, well, okay, this is a gear shift change from talking about franchisees and metrics on that side to then going on to the employee side?
Two things. A set of questions and an insult.
Okay.
After writing the first book and getting a lot of speaking engagements, I found that of all the things I discussed in The Wealthy Franchisee, it was all things regarding managing employees that generated the most questions. Interestingly, the questions were usually something to the effect of, how can I get my employees to fill in the blank, show up, care, that the assumption is there's a problem with the employee, so how can I fix that problem? Almost never would I have a franchisee say, how can I be more influential? How can I change so that I can be more effective? How might I be getting my own way, and how can I, franchisees rarely ask that. But I've always felt that usually we can find answers to our business problems in the mirror. And so when I wrote The Wealthy Franchisee, a big message is get out of your own way. Be a better version of yourself, and then it'll be reflected in your business. Okay? So there's that. Then, here's the insult. I wrote an article for Nation's Restaurant News about enhancing the customer experience by training your employees to pay attention to what they think might be the emotional need of that next customer in line. Are they looking for something good? Are they looking for something cheap? They want an experience that's fast? Are they very social? Just kind of notice where they're at and then try to meet that need, match that energy. It's not a particularly novel idea, but I needed to crank out an article for the magazine. And a couple days later, I got a message from someone who read the article. Hey, buddy, I just read that terrible article you had in Nation's Restaurant News. You have no idea what you're talking about. Have you ever run a business? Have you ever managed employees? And I'm thinking, yeah, for more than 10 years. And then I might have uttered a certain profanity in that direction. And then he goes on to say, I can barely get my employees to show up, let alone act as armchair psychologists. Why don't you get some more real-world experience before you write articles?
Oh, gosh.
So I had to take a deep breath to get over the smack in the face I got. And then I said, wait a second, just take a deep breath here. Let's have some grace. Why might this guy be so triggered from some innocuous article? And I realized it must be that stressful for him that he can't get his employees to do the most basic things. And that's his experience. So I don't want to invalidate his experience, but I also shouldn't invalidate my own experience of moving through that. Or the experience of all these amazing bosses who I met in writing my book or I met just from asking these questions who've also done it. So I thought, okay, this guy can't be alone.
Yeah.
People have always struggled with kids these days. Maybe there's a need here that I can fill. And so I spent, 18 months really taking a deep dive. We're certainly reflecting my own experience, which got better and better, and then searching all over the place for really great people who've cracked the code with hourly workers. So I profile them. You are one of those people doing incredible things.
You did some magic on page 62.
Thank you very much. Yes. I had to rewrite some of your comments so people could understand them, but the ideas were great. No, you were wonderful. And I met so many people. They're still a minority, but there's enough people out there who have figured out how to do amazing things with hourly workers. And I captured that in hopes that other people can replicate their mindset and their tactics so they too can get better performance out of them.
I just want to say, Scott, yes, partly because of the sector that I'm in, but in general, I think it's such a valuable thing that you've done here. So thank you very much for putting that out there. I mean, it's just so important. There's not enough content out there. There's hardly any, frankly, on how to retain hourly workers and so on. I mean, it's a really important thing. So thank you so much for that.
Look, engineers and cashiers, they're totally different. It's the idea that you could just read some general leadership book that's going to show you how to have equal influence. It's absurd. But no one talks about hourly workers, even though, here in the U.S., I think make up 58% of all employees.
Wow.
And so I really want to sort of become that person to fill that need and to help people in that regard.
No, thank you. And honestly, thank you for putting it out there. And just to wrap up, one thing, if you were to sort of get out there and talk to employers, franchisees, entrepreneurs, that one thing that they can do today, that actionable item that will help them reach their goals.
Use your business to improve the lives of everyone you touch.
That's wonderful.
That elevate their emotion, figure out their needs, but just be someone who gives to others 360 degrees. Just focus on that, and I promise as you improve their lives, they'll improve your numbers.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. And if somebody wants to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they can go to Nation's Restaurant News if they want to find some articles. On my website, scottgreenberg.com. And that will point you to all my social media and my books and all that.
Fantastic. And please do pick up Scott's new book. It's an absolute page turner. And thank you very much, Scott.
Yes, my pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. We had the phenomenal Scott Greenberg. I've learned loads, and I hope you have too.